For those of you that may not be familiar, we're speaking with Hana from Evermore Pets, and we would love to hear your story and how Evermore came to be.
Okay, so this is kind of a doozy.
Yeah.
I back in 2000, starting in like 2006, was a professional dog walker slash pet sitter slash trainer. My now business partner Allison was a health supportive chef for people, and she was a client of mine. Now that sounds kind of like a story in itself, like dog walker,
Mhm.
chef, get together, start a company. That's not the story. Another dog walking client of mine, her name was Mia. She lived in Tribeca when the towers came down,
Wow.
and her dog, very shortly after, got cancer. The whole neighborhood became a cancer cluster for dogs. Uh,
Wow. Oh, that just gave me the chills, like
yeah,
full body chills. Wow.
Yeah, if you think about it, like there was all that debris and
Yeah.
toxic dust, and now we're having like, like 20 years after the fact,
Mhm.
15 years after, like people started getting cancer, but with the dogs, it was so much faster.
Wow.
So her dog was diagnosed, given a 6-month prognosis by her conventional vet. And like most pet parents, she was like, what can I do to extend his life? She did a ton of research and landed on home cooking and herbal medicine.
Mhm.
She worked with a holistic vet to come up with a formula. Her dog ended up living another 6 years
Wow.
during that time. She was like a bohemian artist type.
Mhm.
During that time period, like she sort of collected people in the neighborhood to cook for, sort of, I
Mhm.
like to call it like an underground dog food business that was kind of like semi-legit. Like she sort of scaled it at an incubator kitchen, but it was like a little
Mhm.
all over the place. After she got priced out of Tribeca, as people in New York City do, she moved to my neighborhood. And when she developed pneumonia at a certain point, and I became her dog walker, well, she was boarding like 5 dogs from Tribeca. And it was like mayhem. I'd come to her house 3 times a day and walk like 5 dogs at a time. After she got better, she kept me on to walk her own dog, even though I suspect she didn't really need it, but she just kind of wanted the company.
Mhm.
And one day in the morning, I get this phone call, and her voice is like slurring on the other end. And she told me she was in the middle of having a stroke.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I asked her if she called 911. She had
Uh,
called her dog walker first. So
wow. Ooh, full
that
body
tells you
chills again.
that
Yeah.
tells you about her priorities.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, call 911, I'm coming over.
Hmm.
And from that point forward, like I kind of got into this like vortex of like helping to take care of her, helping to take care of her business. Like I sort of became this like surrogate daughter figure.
Hmm.
At the same time, Allison, my now business partner, found out that her like apartment was being sold out from under her, like the building got sold, and she needed a place to stay. So she ended up subletting Mia's apartment while she was in the hospital. A friend had suggested, like, hey, you can help with like the more custom formulas. So this whole situation was only supposed to last a couple of weeks
Hmm.
while Mia rehabbed. It wasn't like a major stroke.
Hmm.
And as we're kind of getting started with this process, Mia had another stroke in the hospital.
Wow.
And this was like major. She was rendered unable to speak or swallow. She was like paralyzed in most of her body. And, it was pretty intense. And her neighborhood friends were like, okay, this is really tragic. Can we still get our dog food? Which,
Yeah.
a mixed reaction.
That makes yeah, for sure.
So we ended up kind of in this like volunteer process where we were running this company on
Hmm.
like this voluntary basis. Mia would communicate to us by like using her fingers to like point at letters on a placard. It was pretty intense.
Hmm.
And at a certain point, we came to her like Allison's own dog Connor never had a bad meal in his life. Like raw
Hmm.
fed, Allison would occasionally like cook for him. He started thriving on this food. Like you wouldn't believe it. Like he was getting a little chunk, he lost the weight, the shiny coats, like all of the things, right?
Hmm.
And so we came to Mia and like, look, we really want to do this. You put something beautiful into the world, but like we really need to just start over
Hmm.
like fresh with a new company. and she very much gave us her blessing. And here we are 16 years later.
Wow. That's such an incredible story. There's so many different facets, and it's very crazy how the universe puts you in a specific place. You know, you may not have even known about, oh, maybe I need to go down this road for fresh food. And
Oh, I
that,
never would have gone down
yeah.
that
And you
road.
were just like completely put on this path. So, how did Mia gain her knowledge when she started? Because that's a really big undertaking to cook, to cook for your dog and have it be nutritionally complete.
Oh, I mean, and honestly, like when we did do like our original research, like we did work with consultants and everything once
Yeah.
we kind of got this ball in our court. There were some imbalances and some things that did
Yeah.
need to be fixed. But, she was very both like autodidactic, like there was so like the books in her apartment. Like
Yeah.
I can't even describe like how many, but she did work with a holistic veterinary practice out of Vermont
Mhm.
to help develop her formulas. So it wasn't entirely in a vacuum.
Yeah, nice. I remember when I went on on my journey, I was doing horse nutrition because I was a professional trainer and rider, and then I started doing people nutrition because the clients were asking. And then I randomly had a client ask about dog nutrition. I was like, sure, I'll try to like fresh food's good food. And then when I look back on it, I was like, oh my, like so imbalanced. Like nutrition balances out over time, right? But it was
Yeah.
yeah, it was very yeah, an interesting journey. But so did Mia did she eventually pass away or is she
Yeah, 9 months after the original stroke, she passed away. I actually ended up right before she died. I got her dog rehomed. Um,
okay, I was gonna ask about
he
the
was
dog.
this beautiful Afghan hound,
Oh,
and the
wow.
woman he ended up with actually lived across the hall from me in Brooklyn, and it
Okay.
turned out they had the same birthday.
Oh, nice.
It was like
Wow.
everything about the whole thing was just like weirdly synchronistic.
Yeah, very much serendipitous. And then so are you a native New Yorker?
I grew up upstate, where I am right now in well, I grew up in Kingston and right now I'm like in Catskill Park.
I
So,
love the Catskills. I had like a very short stint in New Paltz
okay.
when I was working in Gardner. But yeah.
Okay. Gardner's 45 minutes from my house and New Paltz is about half an hour.
Okay.
The Ashokan Reservoir?
I don't think.
Uh, it's over by Woodstock. They provide New York City with
Okay, yep.
for drinking water. I live
Yeah.
right there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's such a cool little village. I guess you would call it a village.
Yeah.
But I love that area. It's beautiful. Okay, so 16 years, that's a long time.
Yeah,
That's like,
it's like more than a third of my life at this
yeah,
point.
that's a long time. And uh, I'm thinking, gosh, have I done anything else for 16 years besides, my equestrian career? And I'm like, oh, not really. So was there a lot of learning curves along the way? I'm sure, like, obviously you grow, you evolve, you learn different things, new science comes out, etc. But was there something that really stood out to you where you're like, okay, we can do this really well. Like this is
Um, well, I think the most tough learning curve, and this is like purely like logistics, starting a
hmm
business with a frozen product with like 19 different ingredients.
Oh God.
Um,
Yeah.
so just like with like no savings for it, they say when you're so far like so just like the nuts and bolts of running a business, I think like was a
Yeah.
huge learning curve. But in terms of like product and nutrition, of course, that's something
hmm
that grows over time. Also a learning curve. I do feel like we had a good foundation with that, especially with Allison's background.
hmm
And her just like her research skills are like through the roof. But
Yeah.
just in terms of learning about the agricultural systems in our country,
hmm
sourcing is our number one priority in terms of our food, just the ingredients that we're sourcing.
hmm
And I think learning about that space, about sourcing in that space, about how we can keep pushing the welfare envelope further,
hmm
about how, I mean, the entire awareness coming towards kind of better agricultural practices,
hmm
I think. I don't know if that's so much as like a learning curve as an evolution.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think it is an evolution. I remember, I think 10 years ago when this was being spoken about in the holistic space and a lot of people outside of the holistic space were very much unaware. I don't know if it was more so like ignorance is bliss or a lot of people just not wanting to believe that, you know, our soil is so degraded. And then, the different pesticides being sprayed. So when we talk about sourcing, can we touch a little more on that, on how you guys go through your process of sourcing your materials, your ingredients, excuse me.
Absolutely. So, I mean, first of all, obviously it's finding the vendors,
Right.
and there's a pretty big vetting process. I mean, the first part is just talking to the people, right? Having a
Hmm.
conversation. There really has to be an ethical alignment there, and there has to be, from our supplier end, documentation, right? Obviously, it depends on what we're sourcing,
Hmm.
but it really just comes down to, okay, you're making these claims, how can you back them up? And just, a lot of research. And I think that that's the number one thing with our partners, making sure that they share our values, our
Hmm.
accountability and documentation. That is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And another piece of that is just like an evolution in terms of, okay, we're here now. Where can we go? Are our
Hmm.
suppliers going there with us, or do we have to find new ones? And some of
Hmm.
our suppliers have even kind of over the years evolved. I
Hmm.
think the best example of that is our vendor Nest Fresh for our eggs. And
Hmm.
I'm gonna just toot my own horns a little bit about this. We share our protein vendors
Hmm.
with the public, and I don't think anyone else. I can think of one other company, but we did it first. So
Yeah, no, you are absolutely known for your transparency. You always have been. And that was one reason that I was like, oh my gosh, I recognized you at a conference I was at. I was like, oh, I want to chat with you. But yeah, you guys are really known for your transparency. And a lot of companies are scared to be transparent. Um,
Well, it's hard because a lot of companies, they don't have, I know I'm like on a tangent from where I was before,
no,
but
you're fine.
a lot of companies, they don't have exclusive suppliers, or they're
Right.
working with brokers, or sometimes people reach out to us all the time and it's like, yo, I got this grass-fed beef that basically fell off a truck. So there's a lot of that. And
Yeah.
it's tempting because it's affordable. It is,
Right.
you can make these claims and
Hmm.
pay half the price, but there's not that accountability there. You don't know that you're getting what you're buying.
Hmm.
So that's a really big piece of it. I
Hmm.
think, can I backtrack to what I was
Of
talking
course,
about
please.
before?
Yes, please. Yeah.
One thing about our suppliers moving with us, or moving ahead of us, I should say, and us benefiting, is we recently, our pastured egg supplier, Nest Fresh, they recently became the first egg supplier in the country to use in ovo sexing
Hmm.
technology in the hatcheries that they work with, which makes us a first too, and it really addresses one of the biggest humane concerns we had with our food. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I live in rural Pennsylvania and I'm originally from California, but I just moved here within the last 3 years and I'm surrounded by a lot of chicken barns. And I was so naive because a lot of them are like, oh, they're farm fresh eggs. They're not at all. Like they're stuck in, these chicken houses with lights on for 24 hours. And then I started to read more about what was happening with the chicks, and I was like, oh boy.
well,
It was,
technically, they are farm fresh. They're
I
from a
mean, technically
farm.
they are from a
They
farm.
just, I mean, everything is from a
They're
farm, you know?
they're not the free range that they
Yeah.
were being
No,
told.
it's
And I have chickens too, and it's hard. I'm uh pretty anal about keeping my chickens clean because my dogs think that chicken poop is caviar. And so,
okay.
so I'm always like, ah. So can we touch a little bit on the sexing that they're doing, that company is doing?
Okay, sure. So there's been technology for this available in Europe for a while, and there's a couple
Mm.
of different methods. So in our country, just to kind of get to the practice of male chick culling,
Yeah.
there are special breeds for egg laying. They're not the same breeds as they use for meat, just because they
Mhm.
kind of are optimized for different things. And half the chicks that are born are male, and half are female. Those male chicks are not useful for the industry.
Mhm.
So, 250 million chicks every year after they hatch are what is known as culled,
Mhm.
which is not necessarily the most humane process. Sometimes it literally is throwing them live into the equivalent of a shipper treader. So
Mhm.
that's pretty terrible, and it's a practice that only 1 in 10 consumers is aware of.
Mhm.
And once people are made aware of this practice, in survey after survey, they're willing to pay more for eggs where this doesn't happen.
Okay. Very.
Hatchery technology to eliminate this, where they can determine the sex of the eggs, the chicks in the eggs before it's born. This has existed in Europe for a while. Some
Mhm.
countries even outlaw male chick culling. That's how adopted it is.
Mhm.
There's 2 suppliers in the US that are starting to implement this. One of them is ours, and I think they had eggs to market first. That's Nest Fresh. And the way that technology works is at around 13 days of the egg gestation period. It takes an egg 21 days to for the chick to hatch. At day 13, before the neurological framework is in place for them to be able to feel pain, they shoot a very strong light into the egg, and there's
Mhm.
a camera with a sensor that can determine if the feathers are white or brown. And in those breeds of egg laying chicks, the colors of the feathers are different. And I don't
Mhm.
remember if brown is the boy or the girl,
Mhm.
but basically, they can at that point dispose of the eggs. And
Okay.
when they dispose of them, they don't go to waste. Those
Right.
eggs are either like turned into meals for pet food companies or used for certain industrial purposes. So
Mhm.
it's just a much more humane system.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think that's a really great practice to adopt. Okay, so you guys are one of the first companies, or you are the first,
We are
right?
the first
You're the
company.
first.
We're
Well,
absolutely the first
congratulations.
company, and I think it's we're the first. The ASPCA announced us as the first pet food,
Yeah.
but we're the first food because when they did their kind of big announcement, there weren't
Hmm.
any other food brands on there, but
Wow.
they like to keep it separate for pet food and human food. And
Yeah.
in case people listening to this
Hmm.
are interested in supporting that, Nest Fresh was the first company. They'll have like a little humanely hatched logo
Hmm.
on their packaging, and they're available in a lot of grocery stores nationwide. And the other company that's transitioning over is a Dutch company that has operations in the US called Kipster. And
Okay.
they do some really interesting things. Their plans are to with the sexed eggs, even though they're not optimized for an eating bird, they are going to raise the roosters for meat and look at things like low income food programs and just ways
Hmm.
that they can use these birds. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting what they're doing.
Yeah, I like that. I'm such an animal lover, so that makes me feel really good. I remember when I lost my first chicken and I was beside myself. So yeah, that's wonderful. So the fresh food movement in pets has really exploded within the last, I think, recent years, right? The last like 5 years. Um, what do you think has driven that change since we're talking about, humane culling, etc.?
I think it's human food trends, right?
Yeah.
I think it's about 10 years behind whatever's happening in the human food space. But
Mhm.
also there have been so many recalls and situations where dogs are dying that have been highly publicized. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of that is they want the accountability of foods, especially with the human grade. Like, look, raw food can't be human grade, but
Yeah.
in terms of the gently cooked space where most of our brands are human grade, I think consumers just want that accountability, that traceability, that feeling of safety.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So um when you have companies that are trying to do predominantly raw, I would assume that they would run into challenges of handling and traceability because, that's one thing is we do a dehydrated base mix, right? And
Yeah.
the customer provides the raw protein or the gently cooked protein. I'm a big advocate for gently cooked as well. And we have kind of tossed around the idea, we're like, well, do we go to trying to do a raw food? I'm like, I don't want to take on that bear. I'm good. I don't want to do that. It just seems like such a huge challenge. And then what I've seen exploding in the pet food space is different types of like air dried and what was the other one I just saw?
Well, freeze dried is a big one right now.
Yeah, there's well, freeze dried, air dried, air chilled or something. Maybe I just saw. Um,
I'm assuming that would just be a raw one where because air chilled, that's a poultry
yeah,
process.
it's a poultry process. Right, right.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be for pet food.
Yeah, I was just at a the World Horse Expo and there was a pet food company there and the name actually just flew right out of my head, but I walked up and I said, "I've seen your ads on Facebook. I think you guys are targeting me." And they're a small company and they do air dried. It's like air dried ch maybe it was Spot and Tango. I can't remember. But so air dried chunks. But yeah, anyway, I digress. I think it's really cool that pet parents are waking up and they're wanting their dogs to have good food. I mean, my dogs sometimes I would say eat better than I do.
Oh, they definitely do. Have we have people reaching out to us. I mean, this is mostly at live events.
Yeah.
And you could tell they are 10 times more invested in their dog's nutrition than their own.
Yeah. Like I'll have pancakes for dinner. I'm fine.
Oh,
Like
hey.
I did that last night actually. I was like, "Oh, I need to feed the dogs." I'm like, "I'll just do pancakes for dinner for myself."
But we have the choice, right?
Yeah,
They don't.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, when you're attending these conferences and you're speaking, are you able to speak on the topic that you're passionate about? And if that's
I
the
mean,
case, like,
if I'm speaking, which full disclosure, I've done a ton of podcasts. I've only spoken at two things. I
hmm
will speak on what I know, right? I
right.
don't want to go outside of my lane. And
Yeah, for sure.
the thing I'm passionate about is ingredient sourcing,
hmm
quality, and marketing around that because there's so much deceptive marketing when it
hmm
comes to pet food, when it comes to human food. I don't treat them differently in
hmm
terms of the claims that I speak about, except for the human grade stuff. And
hmm
that's really what I enjoy speaking about. It's consumer empowerment and animal welfare awareness. I mean, when I was at the student veterinary conference, SAVMA, last week. Feels like, wow, now your podcast is no longer evergreen. When I was at the student veterinary conference, people would come to our booth and we would always ask them, how much do you know about animal welfare? Do you know about this practice? Do you know about this space? And
hmm
the level of just lack of awareness around that
hmm
stuff, even from people in vet school, is
hmm
staggering.
Can you give us an example of,
Um, Well, the Anovo sexing, the
yeah,
number of people that knew about that was almost nil.
yeah.
A lot of other things, like in terms of like the nutrient differences
hmm
from animals that are raised in ways that more mimic their natural behaviors versus
hmm
commodity animals, people weren't really aware of that. And
hmm
just a lot of animal welfare things that I kind of take for granted that people know about this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can assume there might be a little bit of an ignorance in that space. I remember reading a study like way back when I was in college of uh, a small group of Japanese that actually will massage the pig
I know that
before.
for cows, like the
Yeah.
Kobe beef. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, before, because they want to make sure, obviously, because when you are using an animal for those purposes, right, we don't want cortisol surging
Yeah.
through the body. And so I just remember reading that as, you know, a 19-year-old. I'm like, interesting, and that kind of piqued my interest. So I think it's very important that you do speak about these things, especially to our up and coming, veterinary students, because nutrition isn't they do talk about it in vet school, but not heavily.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. When they'd come to our booth, I'd always ask, how much do you know about nutrition? And it was a
Mhm.
lot of first years and second years, so
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
would even acknowledge, hey, we haven't really gotten to that module yet. But I would
hmm
ask, okay, what do your teachers have to say about fresh feeding?
hmm
And it was interesting. They would immediately bring up, they say no raw. But then I would ask about gently cooked. And
hmm
for the most part, they cover home preparations and just about how they need to make sure that it's balanced and under the supervision of veterinarian,
hmm
along those lines. And in terms of the commercial side of it, some people had their teachers had nice things to say. A lot of them were neutral, but the thing that's the most, there's no consistency. There's no consistent curriculum across vet schools, and a
Mhm.
lot of schools don't even have nutrition programs. And
Mhm.
what they'll do is they have this, the one I think that's the most prevalent is the Mark Morris Nutrition Institute. I think that's what it's called.
Mhm.
It's funded by Hills. They don't
Right.
necessarily disclose that, but a
Mhm.
lot of vet schools, that's how they're getting their education.
Mhm. Yeah, which not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who decided to do large animal, and she said, I was helping develop recipes for her dog that had cancer, actually mast cell. And she said, when I was in vet school, as soon as I finished, she wouldn't disclose the dog food company. She said they were giving me so much free dog food
Oh, yeah.
that I was giving it away to my neighbors. She's like, everybody in the neighborhood would come over on a Sunday and be
Free
like giving
food.
out these bags of dog food. And she said, and then a couple recalls happened. I think it might have been when the vitamin
D.
D recall was going on. And then she said, her dog, she's like, my dog was getting worse. And I was thinking, hold on, I'm a vet. Like, this is ridiculous. And so, yeah, so she ended up going down a rabbit hole. And she said, I didn't learn this in vet school. She's like, this is a learning curve for me. I'm having to go to different classes and it's so much deeper, right, than I thought it was because um, it almost touches on the thing on, in herbalism, we say, don't use the herbs allopathically, right? And I do the same with food. We do the same thing. Like if we're talking in terms of energies of the food and traditional Chinese medicine, etc. But she was thinking, okay, well, my dog has this cancer, so I'm going to treat it with this drug. But why isn't it getting better and working? But I'm still feeding this diet, and I don't need to change the diet because I was never told that I need to change the diet.
Yeah, and that
So,
makes, and even conventionally,
mhm.
if you talk to veterinary oncologists or
Mhm.
ones, they know that you need to change the diet. Like that's
Right,
not a secret. Um,
right.
so they might not change it to this fresh version of it, but
Mhm.
it is something that, and if you see an oncologist, they actually will recommend. Um,
Mhm.
it's interesting. I have mixed feelings about this. It's like we know veterinarians don't get the best nutrition and like education, but that doesn't mean they
Mhm.
get no education, and it doesn't mean they
Right.
can't diagnose the problems.
Correct.
And I think a lot of people in the holistic space have this very anti-vet
Hmm.
stance, forgetting that they are highly trained medical
Hmm.
professionals, and they might not lead you to the place that you want in terms of diet, but there are resources there they can identify the problem.
Yes.
And
I completely agree with you. And I always let clients know when we are doing a consultation together and I'm reviewing blood work, etc. I always let them know I would love to work in conjunction with your vet because I've had a lot of people say, well, my vet didn't see this and they're not saying what you're saying. And
it's
it
like
it doesn't matter,
we're not
right?
enemies here.
We're not enemies. We all want the same thing. We want the animal to get better. We want it to live its best life, right? We don't want this to be a stressful situation. And I don't think that I have ever spoken with a vet that has not supported me, that I've reached out to on behalf of a client dog. Like every single vet I've talked to thus far has been really, really supportive. And I've shared my knowledge and I will never overstep and talk about something that I don't feel comfortable talking about or knowing. And so yeah, I'm an advocate of people in their profession.
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's just about making it a
mhm.
partnership. And it's
Yeah.
also the results speak for themselves. When vets
Hmm.
have, patients who are doing
Hmm.
better and they learn, okay, this is the thing that's happening that's different. It
Hmm.
it changes their mind. It moves the dial a little bit. I take my
Yeah.
cats to a very conventional practice
Hmm.
because it's close and convenient, and they have garbage mouths and need dentals, you know. But I
Yeah.
also have a holistic vet down the street who doesn't have a full hospital, but
Hmm.
she's someone I consult with when I need that. So
Hmm.
it is about that balance. I really believe
Yeah. I've had holistic vets refer me to conventional vets and vice versa. I've had conventional vets say maybe, this person needs to reach out to a holistic vet. So I do appreciate that. And I think it's just about not kind of shoving everyone in a box,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Um, So awesome. We've kind of touched on a lot of different things with animal welfare, and transparency practices. Is there, are there any customer stories that have stayed with you for, over the year that has just really made an impact on you? Obviously, your start of Evermore was a phenomenal
I'm
story.
gonna cry with
Oh.
this one. It's also like a major confession with this one. So my own dog died of cancer, and it was a complete and total surprise. Like she was healthy. Like the day before she died, we went on a
Mhm.
run. She was a 10-year
Wow.
old. She was a 10-year-old husky Shar-Pei Akita thing mix, just absolutely the most beautiful dog. And even though
Mhm.
this was 4 years ago, I think about her every day, and it's always fresh.
Yeah.
But we were getting ready to go out for a run, and she just collapsed on me.
Oh my. I'm
It
so
turned
sorry.
out she had hemangiosarcoma. And I mean, her health span was great. Like, we
Yeah.
had no idea there was anything wrong with her. And
Hmm.
rushed her to the hospital. She died within 2 hours. It was probably the most traumatic thing that
Hmm.
ever happened to me.
So
A couple of
sorry.
months later, we got an email from a customer who
Hmm.
told us that she had started feeding her dog after the dog was diagnosed with HSA, hemangiosarcoma,
Hmm.
and the dog's name was Moon. And HSA, like only 10% of dogs, I think even lower, live to a year after the diagnosis. And Moon's mom would check in with us every couple months and say, the doctors are surprised this hasn't spread, this hasn't spread. And she, granted, she was doing other stuff too, again, in conjunction
Hmm.
with her allopathic medicine,
Hmm.
but she blew the doctors away. She lived almost 2 years after her diagnosis.
Wow.
And she would
Yeah.
say, this is, I 100% believe that the food is a
Yeah.
major, major factor here. I mean, we have a
Hmm.
lot of happier stories too,
Yeah.
but for me, that's the one that gets me so emotionally.
Hmm.
So,
That's so tough. I'm so sorry. I just lost my husky Wolfie mix
mm,
last year. They thought it was HA, and then I ended up going to a different oncologist, and they're like, we don't know what it is. And he was great, he was good, and then he wasn't.
yeah, so same
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as people in this holistic space, I
Hmm.
think it even hits, I mean, it always hits people hard, but I think it also causes this like weird identity crisis.
It did, because I was actually speaking at the Healthy Dog Conference in Virginia, and I was using him as a case study because and I brought him along as well, and I had documented it over 3 months, and I had gone to three different vets, one different oncologist, and they were like, we can't put a finger on what the type of cancer this is. We know it's a type of cancer. And he had a growth right here on his
Oh,
nose, and it was
poor buddy.
rock solid. It was super hard. And then he got it started off with like chronic conjunctivitis, and I was at my wit's end. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've spent thousands and thousands at the vet. And I'm like, you know what? And I forgot. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm an herbalist. I was like, oh, yeah. So I did what I knew, and I blasted him with different herbs. And I was doing, honestly, the most underrated and powerful herb that was working for him was chamomile. I was using it internally. I was using it as an eye wash. He was on medicinal mushrooms. And yeah, I used him as a case study. I had a couple vets in the audience, and they took a look at him. They're like, because he had some proliferation on his gums. And they're like, I don't know what you're doing. Just keep doing it. I'm not saying it's gonna cure him, but it's obviously making him feel better, and he's more comfortable. And so I got another 8 months he went on, and then finally I was like, I don't know, you see, one day he was really good and running around and wanting to go on hikes, and then just the next day he like wouldn't get up. And I'm like,
Oh.
oh, yeah, it's time. But when that happened, I had a bit of an identity crisis. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know nothing. Like, what am I doing? I was doing everything right, on a great diet. But yeah, and my vet said, we had just seen him the year before and we saw nothing. They didn't
Sort
see
of,
anything.
mine
So,
was crazy. The year before to the day, my
hmm.
dog had, in the morning, I hear this weird yelp. And
Hmm.
we were out on a run, and I noticed something was like weird was going on with her nose. Within
Okay.
a couple of hours, like her nose had like split open on top and her ear seam, like the side of her ears, it was almost like there was a seam that was coming open. It was absolutely insane. And then it like started turning black. I
Hmm.
took her to the holistic vet down the street because she's like 2 blocks from her house. Speaking
Hmm.
of, you need to go to a hospital right now.
Yeah, right.
And I was convinced it was a spider bite. I'm like, I think she got bit by a spider. And the vet of Heather, my friend, she's great. She said, no, I think this could be pemphigus or cancer. Like, you need to get this looked at right away. I take
Mhm.
her to my vet in the city who I loved. And she takes one look at the dog. She's like, I think this is pemphigus or cancer, right? We do $4,000 worth of lab workup.
Oh
It was
my
a spider
gosh.
bite. It was
Oh
a
my God.
spider bite.
It was a spider bite?
It was a spider bite. And then this dumb dog, I swear, like a couple months later, I catch her like nosing at another wolf
A
spider.
spider.
Like, it was just like, didn't you learn anything?
That's like
But
my Lyme I have. She's the same way. Like,
and they told me this is gonna I had to put her on steroids. It was a whole thing that I
mhm.
felt bad about, but
Yeah.
yeah, they told me she might fully look like her nose might be hairless forever. She was fully, I mean, you couldn't tell anything had happened within 6 months.
Yeah.
But then a year to the day was when she died. I had this
Yeah.
weird like, oh, is this related? I probably not, but it just
Yeah.
is this weird thing, you know?
Yeah. And cancer can be dormant, right? Like 5 years in the body before it
All of a
shows anything.
sudden. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild. Well, it's stories like that and those creatures that keep us going, and I know for me it gives me purpose, trying to help all these little critters out because they're definitely my heart. Um, so if there's one thing that you can say to our listeners, just, to empower them, what would it be?
Oh gosh. And I say this every time. It's kind of segues. Honestly, the most empowering thing is like, don't go down those rabbit holes like too far. Educate yourself, learn the
Mhm.
things, but you're never going to be able to do all the things. So
Mhm.
enjoy your time with your dog because if you spend all of your time freaking out about all the bad things that can happen, you're not,
Yeah.
it's just going to cause so much anxiety. And then your animal's going to feed off of that anxiety. So
Yeah.
I guess my advice is just chill out a little.
I feel you on that. I am so guilty of going down rabbit holes,
Me
like
too.
so guilty. I definitely don't use Dr. Google as much as I used to.
Yeah. It's like you can't control everything, right?
Right.
And just accept that you can't control everything because otherwise you're just going to beat yourself up forever.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So where can our listeners find more about your food? Find out more.
Sure. First off, our website, that's evermorepetfood.com.
Mhm.
If you want to follow the fun stuff, our Instagram account, and that's
Yeah.
Evermore Pet Food. And there's always Facebook for those of you who are
Mhm.
still there. And that's evermore.pet.food. I also have a Substack that I periodically do.
Mhm.
I used to be really good, like every
I
week.
love Substack. I absolutely love it.
Now I'm like a little bit less. It's just now it's when I have time, and that's
Right.
Evermore. It's Evermore Pet Food is just
Okay.
a Substack,
I'll
and
have to
that's
check. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's how I found out about um the eggs. Is I believe I think you sent out an email and I read that email. So yeah, I'll have to check out your Substack. Well, thank you for chatting with me. This has been a pleasure.
yeah. Thank you.